Terry, thanks so much for joining us today on the Surf Nation Football Focus Chat. Excited to talk. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Lovely to be here. Lovely to chat with you.
This is great. This is great. So let's take a deep dive for the next 45 minutes into Elmhurst City values, culture. I went through the website, a couple of interesting things. The first one is the focus curriculum and the culture are the same. So can you talk a little bit about, a lot of people are trying to do this today, create a football identity, but also have it extend a little bit more than a training session. Can you talk about the values and that in the club?
Yeah, so I think when we first started the club, when we brought it about, one of the things we wanted to do was found it on, I would say, more of an educational process versus a soccer concept. So AYSO, which was originally like the group we had, has a lot of those family values, key concepts. So we wanted to take all of those elements and implement those. So it was family first. So I always say to any parent that wants to look at a club and organization is think of it like school. Think about a methodology that meets the receiver. Think about an approach that engages your particular child, a group that understands how they're different, how people are different, how boys are different, girls are different, the mentality. And that's how we really got around creating our core values and our concepts of what we want to achieve. And then you go into the elements of style of play and things. But it was all a foundation of people first. And it was like I've always said is using soccer as the avenue to develop people is how we kind of a founding functional idea of like how we're going to start the club and how we're going to grow it with those ideas. And that's carried us through pretty well so far.
Yeah, this is great. So great start. So when you're looking at that as in a space where players and parents are coming in at young ages and not necessarily having the background or the experiences to know, it has become quite transactional, the industry just in general, and you want to create these longer lasting relationships and the family feel. What are some ways that you do that with players that are coming into the club for the first time?
I think the first thing is making it personable. I think that's where we've achieved success, and it gets a lot harder as you grow. Engaging individually, team specific, to have that connection. When we first started, we would do team meetings with every single team. We would sit in a room and we'd be there for 12, 13, 14 hours over there. And we would meet with every single team. We would meet with the players. And then we would do tryouts and evaluations. We would call every single player. For the first 4 or 5 years, we called every single player, spoke to them individually, talked about where we're at the process and how we're going to go about. So that individual touch and of engagement was second to none. That was what we prided ourselves on. As we got a little bit bigger, we realized the reality was that to have that individual time. So, when we got new coaches in and people in, our most important factor was to have them inspire and to feel engaged and invested. So I think there wasn't one particular thing, one particular event. It's always been, if they feel engaged, if they feel valued, they'll want to stay and we'll retain them. And for the first 7 years, or we're in our 7th year now, that's what's have such growth. And now we're getting to that point of the alphabet soup and things coming in. We're having to, our methodology and our approach to change because it's now the environment is different. The needs and expectation are different as we start to go into the next level, hence the Surf partnership.
Yeah, you can almost be a victim of your own success then as you get better and bigger, growth pains, quality control. Is that a component of it?
100%, because what you used to be able to do, sometimes it's like we don't feel maybe that, are we getting the same? So you now have to rely, it can't just be Terry Gordon or one of our other quality people to do. You have to now, coaches, the people on the ground with those particular teams are following. And that, as I'm sure you're aware, is to get the consistency and continuity of that approach from your coaches who maybe are different stages in their particular career, growth, life, full-time jobs versus part-time. When you're full-time in this industry, this is your life. If you're part-time work coming in, you're going to have a different perspective and drive naturally. So it's been a challenge, and that's, again, it leads to why it's our success is that we have been so engaged. As we've grown, we now need to have partners that have continuity, consistency, and a model that's shown growth and success that we can rely on to deliver the messages, similar messages, and on quality and quality across the board, not just every one individual trying to catch everybody.
Yeah, it's fascinating. There's a line again in your website: keep it simple, keep it small. And again, it makes you go, oh, that's, again, you question that initially, but then when you read about it and it's about the delivery of information, you just said it there, that flow of information, it's not just about feedback, right? It's about what's happened in the club. It's about aligning values. Like, that's key to everyone feeling involvement and experiences too.
The involvement is what I believe is the most important aspect. I think everybody has a curricula, everybody has a concept, everybody likes to play you never hear somebody say, well, we just do it differently. Like, everybody understands the game. There's a lot of very quality people in this industry. It's grown so big. So the points of difference are the relationships you create. And so for us, it's been our primary factor. It's been our purpose, and our goal is to deliver those moments and not be afraid to make mistakes and show that and move forward. You know, we are always trying to evolve, add new things. Every single year we try new things, new programs. If it works, great. If it doesn't, we'll move on. We never stand still. You know, always moving off the ball, always moving.
The dynamic with Matt and Stacey, I spent some time with them at the summit, and obviously coming from experience in different sectors as well. How much has that helped, I suppose, you as you've looked to, again, keep open-minded, keep evolving, and then leaning on their experiences, not just in soccer, but in other areas as well? Has that been helpful?
Absolutely. When Stacey, Matt, and I first got together about the club concept, you know, they came at it as parents who'd been through the process, had their daughters, sons play at a very on through the college. They've done it all. So they had a different perception, and they were able to bring those experiences. They also ran the local AYS years, which is all about childcare and social emotional. So taking their experiences and merging together some of the different soccer expertise that maybe I came in with from, obviously, culturally from a different country, as well as experiences across the country, the US, working with various different groups. It was a really good connection together. So we brought a lot of different areas, and I think that's what helped us create an environment of development and engagement that's carried us through so well. So we have a lot of different cultures in the club, different backgrounds, and that's only helped us. It's only helped us broaden our horizon and to be able to kind of see things in different capacities. And I think that's really helped us. And like I said, Matt and Stacey have been like the parents behind the scene in more ways than just their own. Like, they parented the club and the growth and the teething problems and the tantrums and the panics, and they've been there to like keep it stable and making sure that we're on the right page. Whilst some of the young whippersnappers come through and, you know, want to do this and want to do that, they've kept us on a nice pathway, and we've been able to keep it. I'm not one of the young whippersnappers, as I say that, so I'm talking about the other ones. I'm one of the old guards, I think. But yeah, they've definitely helped. It's definitely been great that we have some really good people and equally invested. I think that's what makes it so we all care, and we'll spend hours, and I mean hours, like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning getting back from evaluations, because we're sitting there looking at our third, fourth team, talking about breakdowns. And I don't know many clubs that, you know, a lot of people would they'll send an email, it's gone. We will go through every player. Oh, is this working? Oh, we should do this, and that family's this. We care, and sometimes we're like, we were overthinking it, because we really want to make sure we do the best, which is nice.
That ties in really nicely to, again, this, like, your mission. I mean, I've seen 100 mission, but yours is also, like, some of the language is really interesting how you frame this. Another one is own it. And again, this, I don't think you see this a lot in the youth space in particular. Well, you know, ECSA welcomes the responsibility of working with youth across Illinois. We own our role on and off the field. to influence a player's development. And I feel as if today sometimes we're moving more against ownership and responsibility with coaching and leadership. Can you talk about how deliberate that is and how you try and work that into your day-to-day?
I think the some of the words ownership, accountability is a word that we've tried to really enforce, because I do believe we've been trying to say that everybody has a part to play, player, parent, coach, administrators. We all are accountable for the situation we're in. I think it's very easy in the soccer dynamic world we live into is to have kids, players, like, if this isn't working, I'll find someone else. So not being accountable, it's like, it's easy to find a reason or not find a reason to stay, like, oh, we'll just go there then if it's not working out. And we as a group have said it's very important to be accountable for what we do well and what we don't do well and how we adapt. But we also hold our parents accountable, and we talk about, like, going through some hardships. We talk about how you deal with the success and how you deal with the failures. And we sometimes emphasize more about how we deal with the failures than we do with success, because success, it's very easy to be your best when you win. It's very hard to accept it when you lose and to not find excuses and be accountable. If we'd have had this, if the ref would have done that. And that comes into our methodology of what we're trying to make our players, like, better human beings is our primary objective. Be great people. You can be a great soccer player, but the percentage that go pro, college, is very, very limited. The percentage that will leave lives is very, very high. So we need our heads to think that we make great people. We develop the right ideas in there. So yes, it's taking a responsibility in those situations, winning the way you win, development first. We're a very young club, we're growing, and so we haven't had the luxury to be in what I'd say is a more recruitment heavy platform where players will just come because of the name. So we've really had to take care of our own and offer that environment, but we've learned to hold people accountable too. Sometimes that doesn't necessarily get you the immediate result you want. If you tell someone honestly, they're at the next club. But you hold a line, and own as a club has a line and a respect that comes from it. So it's hard to stay above that line and not dip your standards to accommodate, because the fear factor of loss or this, and we're trying very, very hard, and it can be a roller coaster. But I think, yes, accountability is a careful word. Responsibility and accountability is a different thing. Like, you're accountable. It's like, a client versus customer relationship is like a better relationship is if we're all accountable.
Yeah, it's almost high risk too, because you're doing that with, not to go into all the competition, but you're doing that in an area where there's high levels of competition, and also socially acceptable to hop clubs today. So again, you're saying that the parent might just say, all right, I didn't like that, I'm going to go literally next door. How do you, how much do you put education on that, or is it more of an individual basis that you just get around people?
Do you mean in terms of their perspective on why?
Yeah, like parent education. Is it formal education or is it informal?
I think very informal. I think our parents out there, they rely on each other. They rely on forums, chat rooms, groups, other parents. It's very hard to get a formal when you are looking at 7, 8 different platforms on just boys or girls that are telling you while they're the best. So how could you possibly hear one? And if you speak to somebody who's in a particular, why would they tell you somewhere else is better? So I think it's very hard for a parent to navigate in the fear factor of what if. And we had an example, a couple of players came out to one of our practices, and the players weren't maybe ready to make that jump at that level. And I expressed that and said, our goal is that they feel comfortable, they build self-motivation, and they become like confident people. And maybe this environment wouldn't bring that out in them, but come train, develop, and let's see how it goes. 3-4 weeks later on, I spoke to them there, and they loved the process and the honest feedback. They just went and signed with another club that is in a brand, is in an alphabet brand, but they don't have enough players, but they'll take anybody to make the team. And I said, hey, if you feel that's good, but that's a prime example that we could have said the thing that they wanted to hear to bring them in, generate revenue, but we didn't. We expressed why, what they need to find, and they were very grateful for that. So our relationship was there, but there was 2 players that we could have just put into our system and churned them in and maybe churned them out, and we just decided not. So it is, you're absolutely right, Gary, with the reward is holding to a standard. Trying to is very hard in an industry where people have the options. You know, you're like a restaurant chain, right? You don't like that one, you go to the one next door, and that is the challenge we face every day. And trying to, above that is always an ongoing challenge.
It's so interesting. The piece on it actually extends, I think, to coach development or coach recruitment, to where you're growing. And obviously, like, another thing that jumped out at me in our chat in Chicago was you guys were so positive in where the coaches were, and be confident about the group you had and the people you had. But there's a lot of coaches or clubs that are struggling to get coaches that can live by the values. So what does that look like when you're trying to bring someone in to work at the club and to align to those values? How does that process work?
I think the thing is, it leads back to what we talked about, the players and how you want to deal with them. It's the same way with coaches, is that if you look online now, you look at anybody's needs and resumes, what are the most important things? What does it say? It says USSF needed, licensing preferred, right? That's what everybody says. The way we look at it is, it doesn't matter what license you have, is we want to have you invite the field to come to a session to see them interact with the kids and engage. Every single coach that we ever bring in has to come to the field. And if they don't have licensing, they can get licensing. That's the good thing about it. What they can't get is the right personality, the approach, the engagement, the investment. Those are some of the key attributes that we look at. And in the past, we have been guilty, as we grew so quick, of bringing people in that had resumes that were just amazing. But in terms of their engagement of people, their engagement of following that process of not about them, but about the group, we fell short in that. And we had to make some decisions that hurt us a little bit short term, but long term. This year, we came out with some individuals, and some were in their first experiences of coaching, but their attitudes, their engagement, their investment, their belief, and their goals align perfectly with that. And they may make mistakes in their coaching career. None of us ever finish it and go, that was perfect. We always should be evolving. And so I would take 50 of the coaches that are just starting up with those men with the right mentality and that engage and investment and positivity and want and need, than somebody that's maybe been there, that's maybe a little hardened with it, that is, oh, I've got an A license and I know this and that. Because for me, I think it's about engaging the kids first, and then the second part is teaching the coach, teaching them how to do it. So we've been very happy with the people we've got in there now, because we're aligned this year. And we actually spent an entire weekend. We took all the coaches into a hotel, dusk till dawn, 2 nights, 2 days, 2 nights, and we did a full training educational with the coaches. And we thought that was so important. And by the time we were done, everybody left just feeling inspired, engaged, looking to go into tryouts, and just really excited about the journey. And right now, we just ran a report on our tryouts. We are 3 times more people signed up for our tryouts now this time than last year. 3 times the amount, which we're like, wow, it's nearly 4 times the amount there. So that's how sometimes you ask where your success lies, is if your players are looking to return and they're that confident that early in there, you're doing the right things. And we're seeing a lot of that. So it's a huge component, is getting the right people on the bus, finding the right people in the right seats. And it's finding the good people before good coaches. Like, we can teach coaching, you can't teach personality. So that's something there that we've been very happy with. Lucky, happy, but I'd say happy.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. All right. So the coach development head on me going like, all right, so that weekend, those 2 days, 2 nights, I'm assuming that you designed that. What are some areas that you said, when you're designing that schedule for those 2 days, what type of aspects did you look at?
You know, that the thing is that there are so many, like a coaching role now is the days when I first started, you just go on the field, you coach, you do some evaluations, see you later. Now you're expected to post social media, your game reviews, analysis, social events, the way you coordinate your social events, the administrative responsibilities, the communication on the apps. These are things that we never had to deal with, and sometimes with the coaches, they're like, those responsibilities now are, if you things we haven't even talked about what they do on the field. So some people say great guy, but we don't get the communication. So we had to break it down when we did this to find a lot of ways that we could help educate them, the systems, the processes, the leagues, because there's so many more leagues, what different leagues are, the standards are. And then that was a part of the element. So there was the operations side. So we had Stacy dealing with the guys on the operations and computers. We had Coach Henan, one of our directors. He was working on the curricular and structure and methodology and approach. Then we did scenarios. So we ran through some, you'll be the parent, you'll be the coach, and we ran through some role plays and put them through some situations at trials, at evaluations, at games, sideline behavior. So we ran through these funny scenarios. We made it fun, and the guys would sit there and we would do these interactions and they had to answer. And we tried to make it as very interactive as possible, you know, not to overload, but it was a lot of it. And then honestly, in the mornings, and we did a lot of activation activities. We got them to be personable. So we had cards and they had to do cues and they would tell something about them and how they grew. And then we talked about the club and how it started and what we care about and why we were passionate. And we let our guard down and we let people see that was a priority for us. And when everybody left it was a tiring, you know, we went out and socialized very well. And after the 2 days, people's smiles, their engagement and excitement, that was when they left. We said, did we do a good job with that? Because the information will have to come again, but did we inspire? Did we motivate? Did we engage them? Are they excited to be part of ECSA at the time, Elmhurst City Surf now? And they were, and they are. So we're going to be doing that again. We're already planning with our trials and stuff. But yeah, that was a huge component of how we want to try to cover it all. You know,
fascinating. It's funny that you're saying that about all the other stuff. I went to the Select event in Salou in November, and it was my first time on having an app that, you know, that the parents had the schedule and stuff. And I would consider myself somewhat savvy with all the tech stuff. Oh, Terry, by 3 days of that app, with communicating, scheduling, and being so accessible, I was exhausted.
It's a lot more now than you've ever been. The expectation of a parent now is, and they're on 6 different apps, for 5 different sports. You know, so they're like checking the app, and even our expectations for them, again, accountability is, hey, put your attendance in. Hey, you haven't put your attendance in today. You know, in all the different ones, it's our expectations have changed for them. And vice versa. And it's more about the social parts, the engagement parts. It's before we've even talked about structure, method, session plan layouts. Not even gone into that, you know, the other stuff. And that's, again, I think that's part of our success is when it's all said and done, is my kid happy? Are they engaged? Do we feel valued? Do we feel that we're heard? More often than not, the answer is yes, hence the retention.
Whenever you're then going down during the week, Monday night, you say, listen, I'm going to go down and watch a few coaches and take in a few sessions. You talk about that energy and passion. I mean, is that the starting point for what you're looking at in every session at Elmhurst?
I think it's a main factor. Is the word I would use is engagement. Is the coach engaged? So I finished my game with the coach, and I tried to sit back, just let them watch, because obviously if you're at work and you see your boss walk by you, you do your shirt up, you look a little bit more busy. So I go watch from a distance, and I just watch and I look at the coach and I see the engagement. And in this particular game, I was really liking what I did. And once I watched a bit, I went round and, hey, how's it going? And then and then part of that is went and saw the players, went and chatted to the parents, just, hey, how you doing, guys? Had a bit of banter with them. the one thing I love about our guys, when we go to a tournament, we don't have to say, come see this, come see that. Like we want to support each other. Guys will be constantly moving around. We want to make an effort to go see each other, to watch their games. How's it going? How are you doing? There's that camaraderie of connections with the coaches. And like I said, a lot of our coaches now are a lot younger than myself, and they're just, they're very engaged. So we say, hey, go watch the games. No one's running off after their games. They're all there. There's a good connection, and it shows. But the energy is, yes, it's your on show, right? Every single second you're there in front of the parents. Practice at the start, practice at the end, pick up and drop off. Two of your most clinical parts of engagement. So yes, it's the energy is vital, and the connection with their players, and seeing that. If you do that, you're 90% the right way.
One of my favorite topics around surf is when we're talking to leaders is about this kind of football's going through this structure versus creativity challenge. But I always think it's interesting to see how coach development, coach leadership approaches the structure of, okay, we'd like a session to run like this, but we still want to give you a little bit of freedom to create your own and experiment. How do you navigate around that space?
I think it's, for us, like we have some US educators on staff, and obviously, as you will know, coming from a different country, that we have a different process, a terminology. And so when I say something like, the number system that's utilized here, and I say you're a 2, you're a 3, back home, they're like, ah. If I say, cleats or scrimmage, or, people are like, what? I think adapting to the culture and assimilating to the standards to make it so that it's universal, or I say universal within the US, is key. I think our session plans there is an element of, these are the attributes of how we want our players to develop. Foot skills first, touches, control, high repetition, game intensity when you train. So we set parameters of certain X, Y, and Z. We don't say this is your session plan for week 1 to week 12. This is what you do there. What we do is we give them the tools, we give them the ideas, the concepts, and then we ask them to do it. And then we evaluate, send your session plans in, write them up so we can check and see what they're doing, and to make sure it's on par. We also have myself and other guys will go around, we'll see sessions, look at how they're doing it. And if we see something different, but for example, we said everybody for the first 6 weeks, no matter age, should be doing 1v1s. I said, so we want that to be a forefront of our, as somebody said, but once you get past a certain point, you need to change it up. You need to keep it fun, engaging. So you've got to be mindful of those factors. It can't just be regimented. So we have certain elements of particular criteria that we want to stick to, but we do feel you need to give the coach some freedom to express themselves, their own personality. But as long as they're following a core guideline, it's kind of been our premise, which seems to work.
Brilliant. All right, big question. How do you approach the subject of winning at Elmhurst City?
There's what you'd like it to be, and there's what you need it to be. Okay, so there is the development concept that we all talk about and preach and love, and every coach says it, and every parent nods and says 100%, 100%, until you're losing. Now they say, well, yeah, but it is a really hard thing. It was very interesting. There were some great things on Jurgen Cruyff. He talked about when Pep Guardiola was at the club, and he said, why playing there when he should be time? And I said, well, it's very easy when you're in an academy where this is just it, where you can develop the best players and you can play whoever you want. And the fear factor of losing is irrelevant because it's a bigger picture in mind. We don't have that luxury as college, especially when you're not in acronym soups of ECNL and things, to have that luxury of losing like that. You wish you could say that, but if you are losing to the bigger clubs or the clubs with those, the chances of you keeping your better players is very, very low. That's the culture that has been created, unfortunately. We try to say you find the best balance. We want to develop. We want players to play multiple positions. We want to encourage that. We want to challenge them. We want to make situations. Finding that right line hey, we lost every week 10-0, but we're developing. Every player played multiple developing. That doesn't the line. So it's fine, right line that you can get the best of both. And I'll be honest with you, it's one of the $1 million questions. The chicken, what came first, chicken or the egg? It's on that same level, buddy. Is everybody wants development, but winning is a very, very core topic in this country. And if you don't win, it's hard to retain. So, and hence why we got onto a partnership, because you need support, you need backing in this wild, wild west of club soccer that we're now is upon us all.
Yeah, it brings us on nicely. The relationship with surf and the introduction to surf. One of the things I was actually talking to Andy about this last week. Again, I remember the talk in Chicago. You were at the amount of questions or the amount of times I thought diverted the conversation to opportunities for players in select. How can we get? Is it too late for this? How do we get players in that? And then to see you there last week in San Diego. With the boots on the grass, getting the select and getting the players out. I mean, that's obviously something that you've been passionate about, the select program. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think for us is recognizing the climate we're in right now. It's even in the last 5 years, it's changed dramatically. The opportunities that are available across the board are just huge now. And it's giving our players an opportunity, not just for the ones that are ready for it, but the ones that are aspiring for it, the ones that want it, is having those opportunities available to us as a club and not pigeonholing yourself in one particular category or area of this particular brand or this particular program. I think that's what I love about the surf opportunity is you've got teams and clubs in multiple different platforms, which means your kids get to experience the different cultures of those and hear and relate and engage and build relationships. It helps us as an organization give our kids an opportunity and show an opportunity, and in everything, social emotional stability. It's massive for us. And like I said, some clubs may need that more than us and less than us. For us, it's a perfect time to segue in from where we are coming to that high level 11-11 concept, where now everybody's fearful of what if we don't. So loved the surf reach. I thought it was brilliant. I really enjoyed it. And like I said, sunburnt, still feeling that for Englishmen out there on that first day. No fear. Regretted that massively. But I think having that, it was an experience that all of our players that got the opportunity to go, the feedback's been very, very positive. So
brilliant. All right, let's finish this up with some Terry Gordon Q&A. What inspired you to coach?
I think inspired me was having coaches when I was younger that I didn't realize until I got older have a belief in me that drove me to be better and to do better. And it wasn't even in soccer. It was life lessons. It was feeling that somebody cared about you and feeling that they cared about how you developed and improved. And that made me feel like we have a moment to inspire and influence a player's life, off the field more so. And ironically for me, it was only when I first started coaching, like 18s, 19s, 20s, I wanted to be successful and prove my worth. And it was only several years after my first groups that I was starting to get emails and messages from parents and kids that I coached that were in high school. They made high school. They got into their first college. Thank you. And I didn't realize the impact. And it was then, like, you get a note from a player and they're like, don't read it now. And the parents are like, you should see what they put about you in class and this, and you realize, wow, you have such a big important opportunity to be that for somebody else. And in 20, like me, I'll never forget my mentors. I'll never forget them. And it's great to think that you could be that. So that for me was, before it was soccer, it was really about the opportunity to impact someone's life more than you could possibly realize. And in 20, 30, 40, 50 years, they look back and say, I had this coach. And I always say it now in my speeches to our coaches, like, you want to be that guy or that girl they talk about and say, they really made me believe in myself. And part of who I am is because of those moments. And I think that for me is probably the most important part.
Very good. Very good. Let's talk about those mentors. Who was is there someone who jumps out as being the biggest influence during your times coaching at the start, during?
I think your parents obviously do a good job, right? I'm one of 4, so crazy lifestyle. So my mom and dad would both send me all over the place. But I had a manager, old Scott, lovely guy, and he would put me forward to all these top teams without telling me. And he never praised. I kind of call him Alex Ferguson. He never praised publicly. Like, it wasn't like, oh, you're so good. He never would try to be like, oh, you're so great. But behind the scenes, I realized all the things, and people would come to me and say, he's recommended you, he's done. And I'm like, and I didn't realize it. And one day, played a game, and I had a terrible game. I wasn't good, and he brought me off at halftime, and he patted me on the back, and I stormed off, sulked off. Oh, I don't want to play here. And I went into the dressing room. I was getting changed, and there was a book, and in the book, and I peeked in it. I was like, what's this? And what he had done, he had wrote every single game down, and he put grades of every player and a full match analysis in a book, every single game. And I started looking through, and it was like, and I had high marks, this, man of the match, this, and he'd written this report. And I was like, wow. And he never knows I looked at that. I should probably tell him that. And I couldn't believe how much time and attention and how really he cared and how passionate he was. And for me, that was amazing to see an individual like just do that. And it was more than soccer. It was the passion that drove it, but the belief in a player. And to a point that he brought me back for a cup final. My brother, who played very high level, he subbed my brother, subbed another player out and put me in. And I made a mistake and we lost 1-0. But the belief there was unlike anybody else I'd ever had in there. So yeah, that resonates with me, and it will for forever. So yeah. And he was Scottish and I'm English. So I mean, like we can connect, Gary. We can be one.
Which team, past or present, inspires you?
I'm a Liverpool fan. You can tell by my Scouse accent. I loved watching the John Barnes, Jan Molby, yes, Razor Ruddock, Steve Wright, Bruce Grobbett, like that team there. And then into my era of the Michael Owens, Robbie Fowler, Steve McManaman, Jamie Redknapp, those guys. And then seeing the Torre, the Suarez and these guys come in. So I'm a Liverpool fan. I mean, you can't go wrong with the era of the tiki-taki as I call it, with Barcelona, and you can't, admire that, and the Dennis Bergkamp goals, or the Paul Gascoigne versus Scotland, that goal. So I think Liverpool's been my team for years, and seeing those players inspired. Dean Saunders making an overlap third man run. It's how I learned to do it. Watching Ian Rush take a quick free kick, like things like that, mate. Like little picture moments there that stay with you forever. So Liverpool would be my group. So
yeah, it was my era, but I was a United fan. So they were destroying United. That Barnes team was destroying United years ago, wasn't it?
That was a good time for us. We had our barren spell. Now Man United's like the Liverpool of 20 years ago. So it's a very happy time, buddy.
Yeah, way worse. Favorite player, past or present?
So many, right? I mean, you can't. The era of Michael Owen was pretty awesome, and I actually met him when he went to Man United, and I had a chat with him when he was in Chicago, and I was just like, "It's okay, buddy. We still love you there." I'd say Michael Owen for the attacking side. I mean, you cannot marvel at a Kevin De Bruyne. You cannot not like look at or even a Modric, and like some of these guys, Luka Modric, like smart players that play above their size and above their strength. And I love that part because I was never super fast. So I had to be quicker thinking. And like, players like that, I think, Diego Maradona, even with his handball antics, I think it's an appreciation of talent. So I don't think there's one for me. I think it's a multitude of players and having a respect for their talents and what they could do,
Brilliant. Which piece of advice would you give to coaches who are looking at getting started and making a career in the game?
Don't be afraid of mistakes. Learn from them and embrace them. I think we've all been there, right? So I think the thing for me is that, you know, you will, you know, parents, the expectation is higher than ever. And the need for coaches, good coaches, is higher than ever. You know, I believe when the COVID situation happened, it was a terrible time, and it changed a lot of things for people. And I believe that it actually, people had a fear factor of getting out in front of people and having those connections. And I've seen it in coaches now. So I think and social media doesn't help, because people can be keyboard warriors. Whereas coaching, you really have to learn that engagement and connect. So I would say, don't be afraid of the connection. Don't be afraid of personal contact. Learn from your mistakes. Learn to be a great engager of people. You know, if people like you, they'll want you around. And that is, I think people don't realize, like, having that engagement, reliability, continuity, consistency is infectious. So I would say, don't be afraid of mistakes and engage. You know, don't shy away from it.
Brilliant. All right, last one for you. This has been amazing, and a question. So I suppose it's a summary question. What makes Elmhurst City so special?
What makes it so special? I would say our point of difference has just been our engagement. Our people person focus first is just about the people, is about engaging them, making them feel valued. That for me is there's a lot of great coaches out there, and I think why we've grown so quickly, why we're, you know, over 50 teams now in a short space of time, is because people felt that. And I think that's what's been I wouldn't say it's unique to us, because there's great people everywhere and there's a lot of great clubs. I'd say it's what has made people want to stay with us. It's what has made people drawn to us. And I think it's what is inspired. I think we do a really nice job of inspiring kids to want to be better and be brave and fearless. And so I love that we're making confident little human beings. I think that's probably the most, is that the kids come out of it and they're vibrant, they're confident, they can talk to people, communicating, they're not afraid. We're making great little humans who play soccer, and that's the plus. And I think that's probably what I think is our best attribute: good people who play soccer, not soccer players that we want to be good people. So
what a way to finish it. Terry, fantastic. Thank you so much. This was amazing. Loved it.
Pleasure, my friend. Always a pleasure, buddy. I really appreciate it.